appreciate you kind of extending the circle a bit and, considering, we'll say non-first responders or non-previously served guests. I think it's an honor to be here and talk about some things that we think could be helpful for men and open some eyes.
Well, that's the one thing that from the get-go of this podcast is I've always been open to having guests who, though they may not be a veteran or former first responder or have operated in those environments, if they're doing something that gives back to those communities, whether it be from the mental health component or, as we're going to get into, with you, from the physical health component, anything that they're doing that helps serve and allows the men and women who are serving to be better, to get better, I'm all about having them as a guest. So I look forward to our conversation.
Awesome.
With that, previous guest writes the first question. I will turn it over to you and let you read it and
sounds good.
See where it takes us.
Put on my spectacles here. Do you listen to help heal, or do you listen to just give them lessons to overcome their trauma? It's a great question. I think it's fair to say that both can occur, right? Something I learned, or have been learning even more and more as I go down this current journey, is a lot of men don't feel listened to. And a lot of that's our fault, because we're taught at a young age to solve problems, right? It's often that, men are from Venus, women from Mars concept, where sometimes they just want to be heard, and we're always looking to find a solution to a problem. And so I believe you must understand someone from their point of view as best you can, right? You can never sit in somebody's shoes. Ask enough questions to truly understand where they're coming from. Ask them why they're confiding in you. What are they trying to get out of it before you begin solving problems, right? But if you're looking to help somebody heal, anecdotal stories, storytelling, those types of things can help a ton to help people realize they're not the only ones, or that, how they feel is a normal feeling. So I think you must first help heal, but getting to somebody's point of healing does require storytelling, sharing ideas. But you have to understand from their point of view, why are they even confiding in the first place? What do they want from you when they're doing that?
Where I was thinking about it is when you say that, it's your job to listen. But on the flip side, and playing devil's advocate, how many times have you dealt with somebody who's looking for you just to validate what they're already thinking? They want you to say, yes, that you need to do X, Y, Z, and that's going to make everything fine, because they've got this preconceived notion based on what their friend has done or what they saw online that that's going to work for them.
All the time.
So it's a combination of listening, but also having to then have the ability to say back, what you want to hear may not be what you think is the right answer.
And in my world, it's daily. But it's understood, right? With access to unlimited resources, there's access to unlimited confusion. So my job is to try to iron things out for people, because it's, it's a fire hose of information out there.
Before we go deep into your story and we get deeper into what we're going to cover today, give me that 30,000 foot view of what Gameday Health is, what you do.
Mm-hmm. So Gameday Men's Health, founded in Carlsbad, actually. Evan Miller is the CEO. He's a doctor of psychology. His background was dealing with addiction and treatment, which coincidentally is also Joe's background. So I think that's why Joe really saw some high level of respect for what Evan's doing and what his new mission is. But basically it was formed because originally as a men's club. Back to the story about, do you listen to heal or listen to solve problems? Evan was looking for an opportunity to create a men's club for men where they could go and talk. Less formality, giving guys, that feeling of a man cave where they can open up and not feel like they're being pressured from the outside. But through,
But was his plan like just a social club in the sense of not a formalized therapy session or anything like that?
That's what my belief is. I don't know the deep specifics, and I should probably learn that, but that was where his heart was. And then just going through his own personal life and different things, including trying to have children. And we deal with that a lot with the guys that come in, either previous children or wanting to conceive in the future. And he realized there wasn't really a place for men to go that created an environment where men felt comfortable, but also provided services that were male specific. And he realized that low testosterone was creating some symptoms for him, but that he really had nowhere to go where they'd actually treat. It wasn't something that was an everyday type service that a primary care doctor would typically, jump in and help out with. So he's like, wow, I can't believe this doesn't exist. So that was kind of the concept at the time.
How long ago are we talking?
2018, I believe, is when he cracked the doors open and just ran corporate offices for a while, had Carlsbad, and then opened Temecula, and I believe some up in Orange County, and realized, wow, this is something that we really need to spread faster because it's truly making a huge impact on people. And that's when he opened up the concept of a franchise solution. Very strict and rigid vetting of potential owners and making sure it's a good fit from both sides, because we do act as the face of the clinic regionally. And then from there, they just slowly kind of added more services that are very male specific for some, but universally for others. Certain things we only kind of treat with men, and others we'll actually work with men and women. But just an environment where it doesn't feel like it's this revolving door. It doesn't feel transactional. It's very personalized, which unfortunately we're seeing with a shortage of physicians and everybody rushing in this world. You're finding less and less time to actually get your thoughts out to the doctor. A lot of guys wait too long to go to see the doc, and when they go in, they have a laundry list of things they want to talk about, and the doctor's like, "Hey, what's the primary concern?" Well, unfortunately, a lot of these things are compounded. And so we try to, make
You
sure.
don't take the car in on the first rattle. You get it 5 or 6 before you take it to the mechanic.
Correct. Yeah. and we've seen it. And I didn't know what to expect opening the clinic, but I can tell you that my background was that I was a patient first. I lived in the Carlsbad area, and I had hit some life roadblocks and wondering what's going on, right? Corporate America, the grind, corporate sales. And every day around 2 or 3 o'clock, I'd hit this wall where my eyes started to get heavy. And I had a full day of appointments left. I'm like, wow, every day I'm just crushing coffee and trying to, smack the energy into myself. And I said, this can't be something that's normal. And at that time, I didn't really know much about TRT or, what's aging, what's systemic, what's genetic to me. And I was a pretty healthy guy. At least I thought I was, and trying to do the right things. I just didn't feel right. So I started researching, and even before ChatGPT and we'll say excessive information online about these types of therapies, there was still a little bit, and everything kept coming back to the fact that I may have less than ideal testosterone levels. I didn't want to believe it. I think a lot of guys find themselves to be, shameful or something, to feel that way. So I kind of did it quietly without even speaking to my wife. I wanted to just kind of go check it out. A lot of the places I called or reached out to, it didn't feel right. Some of the online places felt very transactional, and how they were collecting my information and things, it didn't feel like it was going to be a personalized experience. And then some places locally, I actually walked into without appointments just to check it out, kind of a little sniff test. And it just looked and felt clinical just by walking in. I'm like, man, maybe this isn't for me. And then I just came across Gameday. I believe it was even a Yelp or Google review or something that kind of piqued my interest. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna give it one last try. Submitted the information. Within a few minutes, they texted me, which is cool. I think a lot of guys like to text. And so I was like, oh, okay. Is this a live person? Texted back. They responded. I'm like, whoa. And they got me in within a day or two. And then from there, it really kind of got me to understand the potential of this concept, because I literally went in and within one sitting, I had blood work done. I had some initial panel results back within that same experience within the hour. Sat down with a certified trained clinician, talked about TRT and hormones and how they affect our body, how important they are, and a lot of things I didn't know. Showed me my numbers, showed me kind of ideal ranges. I'm like, oh, geez, okay, well, number one, I don't want to be normal. I want to feel good. And my level of good might be different than the next guy's level of good, but for me, I wasn't feeling good. And I couldn't really narrow it down because everything else I was doing I felt was adequate for my lifestyle to feel better than I was. So I'm like, I'm going to try it.
On the flip side of that, is it possible for someone to be below normal but still feeling and operating fine? Do you find that there's many in that realm?
It's a complex question. I'll try to answer it with simplicity. So there's established ranges, but those ranges are taking everybody into consideration. And I think we all can understand that our population is very sick and diseased and overweight. And if you look at a graph since like the 90s, the average men's testosterone level has dropped like almost 300 points.
So just because you're above the minimum doesn't mean you're still operating in a good zone.
Yes. Now, what I would say though is some guys say, I feel great. I'm never going to try to influence somebody to do something to change if they feel great. The only thing I ever question is, I wonder if they looked at themselves 20 years ago and compare themselves to now, if they feel the same great. Or if that scale's sliding and under their breath they're saying, I feel great for how old I am now. I'm never one to want to live. I turned 50 last Tuesday. And
you're just a baby.
Well, I'm on the back nine now. So I don't want to just feel good for 50. I want to feel good. I want to be able to compete with the younger dads and still get out there and do all those things without being limited by age. And that's when I started to realize, okay, so I started doing TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, which, it's a kind of a coined phrase, TRT, but it's just hormone therapy where you're taking bioidentical testosterone and you're just leveling the playing field. We're not taking these guys over and above. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there about, oh, it's just steroids, or, oh, these guys are cheating. I mean, are wearing reading glasses cheating?
I cheat every day then.
Yeah. Right? Is taking insulin cheating? I mean, we're simply just trying to get guys back to where they were. We're not having them go over and above, and it's medically monitored. So when I started taking it, it took me about a month and a half to 2 months to really start feeling good. And what I found, operating my own clinic now is that, there is this, I call it a 90-day kind of delta. Some guys feel it quickly. Their bodies are hypersensitive, and then boom, they just feel great, and they come in and they're a different guy, and we're all like, wow, that was amazing. And other guys, it takes some fine tuning. It takes their bodies to be able to kind of relearn how to use some of this new fuel. And so it takes a little longer. But ultimately, that's what got me to start thinking about, wow, this is pretty sweet. I started feeling better, more energy, wasn't getting those midday crashes anymore. And that was the main thing I cared about. Other things were bothersome, right? I started to feel like I started to put a little more weight on, even though I was doing the same routine. I'm like, well, why am I putting weight on when I have the same calories and same output? That was frustrating. And that can be a symptom too. Poor sleep is a big one. So either way, all those things started to kind of right themselves. Not perfectly, because it's just a fuel. It's a spark plug. You still have to put the work in, right?
Oh, shit. Well, let's cut down this interview. I thought you were going to give me the cheat code. I wouldn't have to do anything anymore.
No, it's not a cheat code. And we're very transparent, and I am too. I mean, I talk about this stuff every day, whether I'm golfing, whether I'm sitting at a bar, whether I'm going for a walk. And, hey, what do you do? The next thing you know, these guys, they go from a quick question, and it's a 45-minute to an hour conversation. Men want to talk about this stuff.
Well, I think it's definitely, and when was it that because you said the clinic started in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
You went in what year?
What's 25?
Ballparkish.
I think it was right around 2020, give or take.
Not having been somebody who's followed it religiously, but even going back to 2020, was it a little bit kind of like the psychedelics are today, where you got to, maybe not to this extent that you've got to go across the border to get them, but like for the limited knowledge that I have about peptides, the amount of peptides that you can get here in the States is dramatically different if you go down to Mexico or South America. Was TRT kind of treated the same way back then, and is it still looked at it the same way today?
I think that your longevity and wellness focused and health focused men had access to it for probably around when Evan started it. Maybe there's a couple little smaller places around that may be doing something similar, or maybe a forward thinking neurologist may have been offering it. But it wasn't even close to being locker room talk yet. The steroids were still locker room talk, and that's why there's that overlap and the confusion.
Each of us is on the grind. It's that early alarm, the extra rep, the drive that doesn't quit. Grind, spelled GRND, is the mindset that pushes you to go further when most people stop. Founded by a former Army Ranger, Grind Activewear is built on one simple mission: give 100% and then some more. Every piece of clothing is functional, durable, and made for people who outwork the rest. On the field, in the gym, or wherever you're building your next lane. This isn't just clothing. It's commitment woven into fabric, rooted in American grit and culture. Because when you wear Grind, you're not just wearing a logo. You're representing effort, discipline, and purpose. Check out thegrindcollective.com, the GRNDcollective.com, and use the promo code TRANSITION15 for 15% off your order. You're already on the grind. Now wear it.
Even from my own experience with my own clinic, there's guys that'll come in and they'll say, "I think I screwed myself up." I'm like, "What do you mean by that?" I'm like, "Well, I've been doing gear for X amount of years, and gear is just a phrase for anabolics, right? Not just steroids, but there's a bunch of different options that can help guys grow muscle and do all these things, and they come with a ton of potential consequences, especially with long-term use and abuse." And cycling, like that's what the whole concept of cycling. Well, why would you cycle? You cycle because you realize that your body can't handle this long-term. You don't cycle TRT. TRT is very similar to insulin, right? You take it as a supplement to what your body no longer produces to even you out and get you to where you need to be to feel good. And you do that for the rest of your life because your body is not producing what it needs to produce. And that's the importance of lab panels, and dig deep in these panels. It's not just your top number. There's a bunch of different things to look at. And that's just one piece. I mean, the symptoms to us mean a lot more than what you see on a panel. I think that's the difference between kind of this concierge medicine concept and traditional medicine. And to no fault of the doctors, I mean, their hands are tied and for a lot of different reasons. They have to follow certain protocols where it's all lab-based. We care more about outcomes and symptoms and trying to get guys to maximize their potential versus just looking at a number. It's a good starting point. It validates often what's going on, but sometimes it doesn't validate. So we have to dig in even further with more panels or do some more nuanced therapies, which might not be, we'll say standard issue. Some guys, it's just a small amount, or it's a combination of a couple different things. And there's some trial and error involved. There's some fine tuning involved. And that's why we always tell guys, give us 90 days. That's our commitment to you. This is not an overnight thing. And in return, this is your homework. This is a spark plug, like I mentioned. Let's talk about everything else you're doing. Give me a day in the life of Joe Smith. How much sleep are you getting? Are you drinking alcohol? Do you have a high stress job, which is, and we'll probably get into this, but over 40% of our patients are first responders. So, we hear about, operator syndrome, and we hear about, these elevated cortisol levels, and just, sleeping patterns that are out of whack. And those things all destroy the endocrine system. They destroy testosterone production. And it compounds from there, right? It can lead to mental health struggles. It can lead to physical struggles, whether it's weight gain or muscle loss or lack of libido or erectile dysfunction. There's so many things that can happen simply just because of high stress.
Let me use that as a catalyst point. Before we really start diving deep into the nuts and bolts, I want to give the listeners the full range of you. Kind of give them the story of how you ended up where you're at today. So let's start back at the beginning. Where's hometown? Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in St. Paul, Minnesota. Mother's from the area. Father grew up in a small town in South Dakota. He was a Navy Command Master Chief. So
was he active duty while you were growing up?
He wasn't. And we were blessed with that. He was active duty. He got out. And then went back in the reserves, and then ended up finding himself being very successful in the reserves and worked his way up and got into recruiting. And he had to move around a bit, but we stayed home, and he went through the unselfish acts of basically flying back or driving back from wherever he was as often as he could, often every weekend to watch my football games. I mean, it was incredible, the sacrifice he made.
So as a reserve, was he doing full-time or active duty?
He was full-time because he was in recruiting. And then he worked his way up and became, leading hundreds and hundreds of men. And every time he got promoted, he'd moved. So he was in Great Lakes and he was in Colorado. So,
but you guys never moved with him.
No.
What was the reasoning for not moving the whole family? Just because it was perceived like, hey, this isn't going to be a long enough trip for us to uproot again.
Sure. So at that point, my sister and I were already well established in our lives. My mother had a job with the airlines.
Which airline?
Well, it ended up being Delta, but Delta had acquired, I think it was Northwest, and before that they were Republic Airlines. So it was always acquisitions. And so she was putting in her time, and she wanted to get that pension, because back then that was what a lot of blue collar families, that's what they lived for.
Yeah.
And so she had the ability to get my dad home on flights pretty inexpensively. And then for the Great Lakes, my dad would make that drive. It was probably 6 hours from Chicago. And sometimes he'd do it in snowstorms just to get back. So it was amazing. But I'm sure we put my mom through some trials during high school without dad there with the fatherly ability to keep me in line.
Dad was more than an arm's length away.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me, my mom was pretty tough too, but I'm sure we tested her boundaries. But yes, so St. Paul, Minnesota.
You already mentioned football. Were you a sports kid all around?
Yeah. I love sports. I tried them all. Some I was okay at, but, wasn't good enough to be able to start. So I try to focus on sports that I could actually get more playtime in. Football became the main one. I played in most sports growing up.
How are your academics?
Decent. I would say, if I'm being full transparency, I was the kid who got bored easily. And every report card would be the
toxic class all the time.
He's too intelligent and he's not being challenged enough. And because of that, So now that I have kids of my own, I'm trying to teach them to do better than me. But I've always been, interested, and I've always found myself to be fairly intellectual, just not a guy to study in the books, And with my dad being military, and I did a lot of blue collar jobs growing up, and we even owned a small business for a while doing some construction stuff. Just, hard knocks and street knowledge became as important to me, and I feel helped me get to me where I've gotten today more than school did, even though obviously school is super important.
Was Dad ever pushing the military for you?
He never did. He was a hard ass, but he was also a softie. And I think I got both of that from him. Super emotional, but also, stern. And yeah, I just feel, rest in peace. He passed away a couple years ago. He never pushed it. And so I wouldn't say I have regret, because I believe that everything we do in life is for a reason, and where we're steered, there's some purpose behind it. But I did apply to get in. There was a program available. I don't remember exactly the details. You may have heard of it before, but basically it allows you to like get through all the paperwork and the medical side of it and all that, and prepare yourself to enter right when you graduate. And you're basically doing it your junior year, preparing for.
So like the delayed entry or delayed enlistment program?
Yes, there you go. Thank you. I couldn't remember the term. So I went through all that.
There's even some situations, and I don't know if it's with every branch but I might just be thinking about the Army. But I think I've had a guest who did the delayed enlistment, went to do boot camp or basic training while they were still in high school, like during summer.
That was it.
And then went back and did their senior year, and then after graduation went to active duty.
So that was it. It was through the Army. And my dad gave me a hard time.
Geez, I wonder why.
So yes, it was the Army. It was delayed entry. It was that kind of junior year summer concept. And I was all in. Took the ASVAB or the Army equivalent. Everything aligned great for what I was hoping to kind of do in there. And then there was some mishaps from my recruiter with paperwork. And it basically prevented me from entering that summer to no fault of my own. And I took it as a sign. Not saying that if my life didn't go in the route that it did, that I wouldn't have reconsidered, because I grew up with a life of service, and it's something that I'm very passionate about and find important, but it just didn't turn out that way. That was kind of that one attempt, and it fell through. I just decided to move forward.
What was not necessarily on your radar for life as an adult, but what were you hoping to do in the military job-wise? And then did that have any carryover to what you were hoping to be able to do on the civilian side after or at the same time?
There was nothing, because at that age, I mean, every kid, it's like my son now wants to be a SWAT team, right? I hope he does that, but at a young age, you can change your mind 1,000 times. What I ended up wanting to pursue in college, it never did, but is very different than the military. The military, I just wanted to, number one, I wanted to get help with college. My parents couldn't afford to put us through, to college, and I didn't want to have this huge debt on me. And then I thought it would whip me into shape. I wasn't the perfect kid. I was intelligent. I worked my butt off with my dad. I had great work ethic, but I wasn't always running with the right crowds, and I wasn't always making the right choices. So I felt it would be a good reset for me, where I'd be forced to have structure and forced to get myself reset, and just take whatever job in there that I could with the results of my test, and hopefully it was something that was not just infantry. I wanted to do something a little bit more complex and more interesting than that, but not really any more thought around it than that.
Trying to read the calendar, you said you just turned 50, so we're 7 years apart, or almost 7 years apart. So you would have been trying to enlist just after the first Gulf Wars?
I was sitting in the basketball locker room during the first sorties, during that first operation. Which one was that?
It was either Desert Shield or Operation. There's so many of them. It was like Desert Storm, Desert Shield, Enduring Freedom. I can't ever keep them straight. But it was that 92, 93 era.
Yep. I think it was Desert Shield. And all the talk was sorties and super patriotic. I think that kind of gave people the buzz to knowing now what we know. But yeah, back then, I was all about it. But they had a little tiny TV in the locker room, and all the guys were watching, as we were, doing that first round. And I was like, wow, this is pretty exciting stuff.
But because what I'm getting at is, because of that, was that a hindrance for your parents to, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, in the sense of not supporting your decision to do the Army, or was it merely because you were trying to do it while you were still in high school?
My mother was very motherly in her ability to worry about everything. Amplified. So obviously that was not something she was supportive of. My father was more, I'm going to let you learn your life lessons by you making your own choices. And at times, if he had to step in and talk to me about certain things, if he think I was going completely outside of where I should be the path I should go on, then he would step in. But usually he was more about, I've created the foundation for you. Now it's your turn to kind of make decisions and fall on your face if you have to and figure it out.
So what year did you actually graduate high school?
94.
And straight into college?
Mm-hmm.
To study what?
At the time, psychology, and roundabout, I found myself my whole life being the person that was always like, people would talk to me about their problems, just reactively, whether it was the family unit or outside of that. And people would even say, oh, you should be a psychologist. I'm like, oh, it doesn't sound super exciting for how my mind works. And then I started researching, and there was a couple of things in that world that sounded interesting. There was a thing called industrial psychology, where you're basically taking the concept of psychology into a business. And it's basically a form of business consulting, but you're using a different framework for that, and understanding the different hierarchies within the system and talking to everybody in the business, not just the executive branch, and trying to understand the psychology of the business to find out where you could provide value. And that sounded really cool to me.
Is that something that can actually be done with an undergrad degree? Because not many psychology jobs can be done. You get your bachelor's in psychology. It really doesn't allow you to do much.
No. And again, I didn't really have a plan. It's just, that sounded interesting. College is what you do. I wanted to go there for the social part of it. I wanted to go there to spread my wings. And I wanted to make sure that whatever I grabbed onto was something I was interested in. And that to me was interesting. And I saw potential for a career there. But yes, there would be some postgraduate requirements.
Where'd you end up going to college?
So it's a medium-sized school about an hour north of the Twin Cities. It's called St. Cloud State. Most people haven't heard of it unless they're hockey fans. So we're one of the few schools where we have a Division I hockey team that plays in the WCHA, and they're always competitive, and they play against all the big schools. And have been in the Frozen Four before, but the rest of the sports within the college are D2. So it's like 15,000 people, decent sized school.
Did you want to play hockey? Is that why you went there?
No, it was just
what it's known for.
Is what it's known for. It was known to be a fun school. It was known to be a decent school, and they had a good psych program. And I had a fair amount of friends going. So all those things combined.
No desire to get far, far away from home?
I had looked at ASU originally, and again, no regrets, but I think I was pulled more towards St. Cloud State just because it was closer to home, but also closer to a bigger group of my friends. It took me a little longer in life to realize that I really wanted to spread out and become more independent and kind of like carve my own path.
Right.
But at that point, 18 years old, I didn't necessarily have that strength yet.
So then how'd you end up in Korea?
So that was kind of step one of me evolving a little bit and becoming more of an independent person and taking risks. So it was twofold. I had a buddy in college who was Korean adopted. A lot of kids from the 70s that are Korean nationals came through this adoption program. He was one of them. Super great guy, and one of my requirements to graduate for some psychology was to interview somebody of a different culture, different race, what have you. And I'm like, he's perfect. I want to talk to him. I want to understand. Okay, talk to me about your life as an adoptee. And he hadn't even been back to where he was born. And that was a big, bucket list thing for him. But just learning about kind of what it's like to grow up in a small town as a Korean adoptee. He grew up in a very small town. And it just got me curious. And I'm like, man, the world sure is big, and I'm not joining the military. So when am I going to have a chance to ever travel if I jump right into a career? And I didn't have a lot of money, so it wasn't like I could just like grab a credit card and travel. So how can I travel and get paid? And then my cousin actually did a similar concept and did the same thing in Japan. So he went to Japan and taught English. I went to South Korea and taught English. Reached out to a guy in Busan, went back and forth. This was back with very basic internet and basic communication, but still good enough. And next thing you know, he offered me the job, sent me over all the information. I packed my dad's Navy bag, chuck full. And that was back when you could say goodbye to people at the gate. Family was all saying goodbye. My dad hands me a letter. And my dad wasn't that kind of guy. So that was, that's another story. But, and I was off. Butterflies in my stomach. What did I do? What am I doing?
Was there a minimum time commitment that you had committed to?
1 year. 1 year. And you boots on the ground and you got to figure it out. Right? You don't speak the language. You don't understand their culture. I tried to buy the books and all that stuff and read a little bit while I'm traveling. It's a long flight. And
other than having a job commitment when you got there, did you have anything else lined up?
No, I mean, he provided the apartment. It was tiny, shock to the system, but I didn't need much. I was hardly ever home.
Were you teaching in a school environment, or was this a private, like to a family?
No, it was like an after school type concept over there. Japan and Korea, they're big into academics and like after school work. And so they go to school all day, and then most kids will go to at least 1 or 2 after school programs, not including sports. So whether it's music, language, what have you, math. So English was a big one. And so it was just an academy outside of the school, the kind of school concept. It was a private pay academy, but all age groups. I mean, it was everything from kindergartners all the way to housewives.
How'd you find the experience being there? Obviously doing the teaching, but just getting settled and getting into a life while you were there.
It felt like a movie scene for a while, just because there's a lot of hustle and bustle. It's condensed, just like Japan is a lot of people per square feet. And you're living right in the center of town in a high rise, and you hit the street and it's just noisy and all this stuff. But once you get used to it, because I didn't grow up in New York City, St. Paul, it's a big city, but you're not smack dab in a metropolis. So once I got used to it, I thrived off it. I loved it. I mean, it was working out, it was socializing, it was traveling when I could, hopping on a train, and a lot of hiking. That's a big part of their culture there. Met a bunch of good friends. There's a lot of shipbuilding in Busan. And so I met a lot of people that were in the industry, a lot of Scandinavians that were engineers. Plus I had a lot of Korean friends and just made some great friends. I'm still friends with a couple guys today. We just messaged on WhatsApp like a month ago. It's pretty cool. But it was amazing. I was able to go check out, I went to China, went to Beijing before their development. That was back when they had bike lanes twice the size of car lanes, all the old World War II bicycles and all that, and Tiananmen Square, and just experienced China, visited my cousin in Japan, and it was pretty amazing. And I wasn't paid a lot, but I didn't need much. The rent was covered. Costs over there were cheap. Food was cheap. Healthcare was cheap. So I had plenty of money to kind of survive. And that's all I wanted. I just wanted to travel and experience things from a local's point of view versus a tourist point of view. And I definitely did. And I wish I had stayed longer, actually.
Did you find that you were welcomed pretty quickly?
I did. The caveat, I think it'll be at least understood on this podcast, not appreciated, but understood, is that they assume that you're a GI immediately. It's the first thing they ask you. But I tried to learn the language as best I could, and just an attempt at it showed some respect. And then when I told them that I was a teacher, their tone changed. It's just, young kids going over there, they're on base most of the day, they spread their wings and go out for the weekend and maybe don't make the best choices and whatever. So, but once they heard that I was a teacher, I was able to make a lot of friends and gain some respect.
And so you already alluded to this. You only did the 1 year and did not extend, or were you given the opportunity to extend?
Yes, I could have. I wanted to get home. I had to go home anyways and reset it and come back, with your visa. And my cousin did stay over there for an extended period of time in Japan. I just never did. And again, I wish I had. It was interesting coming back, though. Not saying that I truly understand what a soldier goes through, but the reverse culture shock was pretty strong. So being gone for a year and coming back, it was pretty bizarre.
Well, I was even thinking just from, and this may even sound rhetorical, from a young man's perspective, to go off, spend a year in a foreign country. Don't necessarily have to serve as quote unquote as a military member to do that. But what I'm getting at is that you had to feel different than, because did you come back immediately to the St. Paul area? And so even though you've got friends who've probably gone on to college and you were in college, and maybe I'm over generalizing this, but I would imagine there had to be a little bit more maturity level from you to your friends that you might have seen. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. And I hate using the word maturity. I think it's a loaded word. You can't really define maturity. I would just say when I came back, life hadn't changed, right? I had changed, but life was frozen in time. That's what it felt like to me. Like I came back and it was the same as when I left.
Did you feel out of place?
I did. That was kind of the reverse culture shock. Like my first time walking into a Target, I was overwhelmed. Even though I was walking into the equivalent of Target or grocery stores in Korea, it was different because there, I was the Waeguk. I was the foreigner, right? So my lens was different. How they looked at me was different. How I approached things was different. Having to learn to read the Korean language to have a general understanding of what I'm buying, what I'm bartering, what I'm getting into. I had to slow down my brain in South Korea because I had to process everything. And then when I came back, it just felt like everything was going 1,000 miles an hour. And it took me a while to like get back up to that speed. It was very, very strange. I've never looked into it from a psychologist's perspective. I should probably spend some time on ChatGPT. I only spend like 10 hours a day on it. It's probably and learn about what that concept is because it's a real thing. It was very visceral.
It's got to be a unique scenario too. Because I go back to you being in Korea. Did you ever get to a point where you felt like you weren't always, and I'll use the word standing out? Did it ever get to a point where you felt like you just blended in and they just stopped seeing you as, oh, there's the American guy? Or did you always kind of feel that sense of, I'm not, and I don't want to use the word, I'm not one of them, but I would imagine there had to be a natural routine of your day. Mm-hmm. From when you got there to when you left. Could you notice something different in the people that were around you?
The locals, yes. But again, I'm always on the move, right? So going down, walking through there's this little kind of covered alleyway. And the little old ladies selling their vegetables and fish and all this stuff. And they're always sitting on their little chairs. And I can totally picture it. And these little tiny restaurants that you can kind of sneak off into, they're very nondescript. The signs on them, it doesn't say like a fancy name. It just tells you what they serve. Fish, meat, right? You just learn which place has the best meat, which place has the best service, what have you. And they're all, so they all knew me. And my Korean was getting just good enough to where like we could mess around a little bit, very, very minimal, but enough to where there was some camaraderie and some interaction. But on the weekends, I'd go away from that circle and go into the city or, the nightlife and whatever. And there's a couple bigger areas that we'd go to frequently. That was still crazy. But then that's also where you'd see more servicemen, more diversity just because of travelers and what have you, versus where I was, which is more like a suburb area where there aren't as many foreigners. It's a very homogeneous society. So when I was walking around those neighborhoods, aside from my little daily routine, I would still get kind of the looks and everything. It just bothered me less because I felt more confident in my skin.
Got it. So there's a point to where it's like you mentioned, you weren't from New York City, but you can take the average person who's never been to New York City. Day one, it feels like you're a salmon swimming upstream. You give them 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, they're going to adjust to their environment. They may still stand out, but maybe even to themselves, they don't feel like they stand out as much anymore. Mm-hmm. Is kind of what I was thinking about.
Well, the humans are incredibly adaptable. It's probably why we've evolved to who we become. It's evolution is something special, and I think that's what makes us so unique as a species, right? People that don't have a lot of water find a way to survive without water. People that don't have a lot of this survive. You can look at lifespans, you can look at overall health, you can look at all these things, and people that live off of seal blubber, right? The Inuits, and they still find ways to have great labs. Their bodies adjust. They're adaptable. They learn to live that life, and that's all they know. So you throw somebody into something, they may not want to be there. People go to New York City for a few years. They're like, I'm out. But they were able to survive and able to thrive there. It just wasn't for them. The big city is no longer my thing. But back then, I loved that hustle. I loved that vibe, the energy. Always on your toes, always having to kind of, look at both directions. It was exciting. For sure. A lot of adrenaline, and just that constant traveling around and seeing new things, and every corner's a new view was great. Haven't done it for a while. I'd love to get back into it with my family. Obviously COVID and all these different things has just slowed down that and the new business, but I'd love to have my kids start to experience that. And again, not from a tourist point of view. I would never go somewhere and act touristy. I'd ask the locals where to eat. That's kind of how we are. My wife's the same way. We don't like to hop on the tour bus. We want to just land and figure it out.
I always used to tell people, with work or whatever, if I were traveling more frequently, go sit down at the bar in the hotel and you ask the bartender, where would you go eat? Mm-hmm. Don't send me where the tourists would eat. And then you come back and then you give them the due respect by popping your head back in the bar going, thank you, that was great. Mm-hmm. But yeah, for me, that's one of the things when I think about traveling and people talk about doing, that's why I've never been on a cruise. The idea of being stuck on a boat for 7 days, even though you can get off for the excursions, I feel trapped. I feel isolated. It doesn't appeal to me. Same way with traveling. I don't want to necessarily do a big group tour thing. I don't want you to tell me that I have to go there and I have to go there. I want to figure it out and do it on my own.
Yeah.
Have you been able to take your kids though back to Korea?
No,
or to Korea.
So mentioning kind of like I want to be the older dad that can keep up with the younger dads. So my kids are young. My kids are 5. They turned 6 in December. I have twins. So if you kind of backtrack 5.5 years to where we were, they were born right before COVID.
Got it.
And so you got the pre-COVID babies, then you have COVID, then enter some unfortunate situations with my family and losing both parents in a short period of time and starting a new business. There hasn't been time for that. So I keep promising them that I promise you guys, you guys will deserve to kind of explore the world and it's coming. Just haven't had a chance to do it yet.
So for you, between coming back from Korea and then the big window from then to ending up in California, you mentioned doing finance. So was that the route that you went, was straight into the finance world? No. So
it's funny looking back at it. I don't think it to be this story per se, but there's always some sort of pivot with what's going on in the world. So, came back from South Korea and jumped right back into the things I knew that I could make money on. Right. So I had done, various types of construction and landscaping and stuff growing up in the summers because I love to make money and work hard. Plus I was either bartending or serving. So I would literally burn the candle at both ends.
But no specific plan for your future.
No. So, but working in the service industry, I worked at very nice restaurants, fine dining type places. The right type of people go through there for business meetings and whatever. And that was back when the economy was solid. And so I probably had a stack of business cards that thick of people saying, hey, when you get back from Korea, give me a call. And I got back in May. I'm like, okay, I'll start throwing out resumes and stuff. sometime in the early fall. I just wanted to make some money, take a little time off before I started looking into my career. And there's 3M back there, all these companies looking for like entry-level sales guys or entry-level business development and just, something to kind of start my resume off. Well, what happened that fall?
Are we talking the Enron.com?
9/11.
Oh, I went too far ahead.
9/11 happened that September. I was actually on a work site when I heard about it. So that changed a lot of people's plans that were in my boat, that were looking to try to jump into a career path, and everything froze.
Did it put the military back on the radar for you at all?
It didn't, but it put San Diego on the radar.
What about San Diego?
So kind of back to the fact that when I came back from South Korea, I felt like nothing changed, right? Frozen in time. I didn't feel as connected to the community anymore. Still love it there. It's amazing. Twin Cities are great, and people are great and all that. But now that I had traveled and came back, it was just a different mentality and more self-serving. Like I wanted to see what I could be, what my potential was. And I didn't want to jump into I didn't want to be a statistic because I grew up in a very blue collar neighborhood, and a lot of my friends ended up going down roads where they jumped in a career. It wasn't the career they wanted. Some of them are very successful. Some of them are still struggling, right? I'm like, I don't want to be somebody that didn't take a chance. And my father was stationed out here. My mom actually met my dad when he was stationed in Waikiki. And then when he got back from his tour, they moved to San Diego, and he was stationed 32nd Street. What's the base down there? I'm sure
you're gonna put me on the spot.
I'm sure your listeners are gonna be screaming at me right now. I think it's 32nd Street, 31st, 32nd Street. But anyway, that's where he was stationed, and they lived over in Lemon Grove for a while. And because of my mom's flight benefits and my dad's ability to get lodging on base, even though we're blue collar, we were able to do a little bit of travel growing up, which we felt very, very grateful to do. That was back with standby. All the standby passengers who were employees had to like dress up.
You're preaching to the choir. I grew up in the American Airlines family. That's why I asked what airline your mom worked, because my dad worked for American Airlines, and I remember those days. And first time going to Hawaii, Dad, why do I got to wear a suit?
Yeah.
Let's be honest. We're hard on our sunglasses, especially first responders and military members. They get dropped, scratched, left on the dash, or crushed in our gear bags. Frontline Optics gives you the same premium quality and eye protection without the high price tag. Sure, you can spend big money on the designer brands, but why should you? From polarized UV 400 lenses to anti-reflective and water-repellent coatings, every pair of Frontline Optics glasses is built to handle the demands of the job. And here's the best part. When life happens and they break, Frontline Optics has a no questions asked replacement program, even for prescription glasses. If that's not enough, Frontline Optics was founded by a firefighter, and a portion of every sale supports the First Responders Children's Foundation, helping the families of those who gave everything. If you're looking for sunglasses that look good, are built tough, and that come from a company that gives back, visit frontlineoptics.com and use the promo code TRANSITION10 to get 10% off your purchase. Frontline Optics, from a first responder for the front lines.
Yeah, so flying standby, obviously great for blue collar kids to see the world a little bit. And San Diego was always a place that it just felt like a place I really wanted to explore as an adult.
Was San Diego kind of the normal or simply a regular travel spot for your family because your dad was stationed here?
Yeah. So they had some friends still here. He loved it here. He never wanted to leave. We left back to the Twin Cities because my mom is from there and she has a large family. His family was more disjointed and small town. So she's like, I got to get back to my family. And there wasn't family in San Diego. It was just neighbors and work friends. But we went to go, every year we'd go see, not every year, but as often as we could, we'd go see their old neighbors, Donna and Jim, awesome people. These tiny little Cracker Jack box houses over in Lemon Grove that are still probably selling for almost $1 million.
Oh, yeah.
It's just crazy. Yeah. But no, it's just something I always, I'm like, I've never been out to San Diego to visit as an adult. It was one time I came out here with my cousin. It was his first time flying, and we experienced it a little bit, but it was still with parents and not really adulting per se, the way I was hoping to check out the town, if you know what I mean. So I'm like, I'm just, the world stood still where I was. 9/11 happened, so that even compounded it more. And then, okay, well, Korea was something I wanted to check out, explore. What better time now than just pack my car up and go? And I had a good buddy who said, hey, if you need a couch surf for a little bit, I know some people that live in PB. I'm not sure how long you can stay, but until you can find a place to rent, the doors open for you. And they were super great. Kept the place clean, kept the fridge full of beer, the typical things you do to show appreciation. And then got my first apartment, had some interesting roommates, and then convinced a couple buddies to move out. Stayed in PB for about a year. Then they slowly moved their way back to the Twin Cities. It wasn't their jam, which is fine. Everybody kind of tries things out. But by that point, I had already met my current wife. That wasn't the plan. I left on my mom's birthday, and she never let me forget it. And she said, "You're never coming back." I'm like, "Of course I am, Mom. I'm just going to go there for a year, 9/11 and all this stuff. I'll be back." And
famous last words.
Yeah, but met a super cool chick, and she helped straighten me out too and level set me a little bit. And she was my forever person. So met her, and that kind of changed the whole plan of where am I going? What am I doing?
So when you got out here, did you go straight back into the bar scene, the bartending,
yes,
serving?
Very temporarily, but a buddy of mine is like, hey, I know a guy opening a medical recruiting, like nurse staffing agency in Carlsbad. It's a franchise, but they're opening one in Carlsbad, and he hasn't started the hiring process yet. He's like, I can put your name on the list and get you an interview. Cool. No idea what that meant. Nurse staffing. I knew it was a job. I knew it was more career focused and out of the bar scene, and something that could at least springboard.
Because there's no bars in PB. I mean, you wouldn't be able to find a job.
Yeah, and a springboard for future things. And reading what the job entailed, it was a little, it kind of created a jack of all trades concept, which was cool. Like, yes, you're doing development and sales, but you're also managing and doing staffing and meeting with families, because these were like home care nurses. So you're meeting with the families who need the nurses, and learning about those families and meeting the people that were sick. And it was pretty fulfilling, but it was a grind, and I knew it wasn't my forever thing, but it was a great starting position in my career field. And that was 18 months or so after 9/11 happened. So I was just blessed to have an opportunity, right? And I had interest in medical. I mean, I always thought the medical industry was interesting. Just I wasn't going to jump in and go to nursing school or med school. So this was an interesting kind of angle to jump into that world.
You mentioned meeting your future wife. Had you not met her, do you think you would have gone back to Minnesota with your buddies?
Probably. Probably, except that I met another person who helped me get into another opportunity in the medical field, and that position lasted for almost 10 years. And so I don't know if I would have uprooted, but potentially, or just moved somewhere else, right? It wasn't like I had super deep roots here. My buddies had moved back, and so it was just me and the job and a couple of new friends I met, but nothing sticky.
My whole point of taking you through that journey was to figure out how you ended up out here in California. Between that initial venture into PB and the day you walked into Gameday Health in Carlsbad, anything significant that is a factor for what you're doing today? Because I'd like to go back into more of the specifics of what Gameday's doing.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I think everything we go through affects what we're currently doing, for the good or for the bad, or for the insignificant or what have you. So I would say worked for a buddy and sold medical equipment for 10 years. We became really good friends. And again, a world that introduced me to a lot of people in need, people struggling. We did some very specific products that help people that have spinal cord injuries. And a lot of those were young kids, active kids, people that have diving injuries, motocross injuries, equestrian related injuries. And so evolving with what we offered and what my expertise became, I was seeing a lot more of these things versus traditional medical equipment. Somebody getting a knee brace, or an older person needing a walker or something, or a hospital bed. I started to see more kind of the scope of what's really out there and how many people are actually going through really tough times and seeing them at their worst, right? I mean, you have these beautiful, healthy, athletic kids, late teens, early 20s that were just getting their life started. And they're super active kids and they're doing all the right things. And then immediately their life changes, right? And when I see them, they're at their very lowest or close to. They don't have the right equipment. They don't have the right plan. Their house isn't built properly for their new needs, all these different things. So again, it was just another thing layering on like what my passion became and what my strengths were and what I was finding out to be my strengths. Sometimes you don't even know what you're good at until you get thrown at a bunch of different things. Oh, okay, I'm decent at that. Maybe it's something I should pursue. And so
because of that experience and seeing the benefit that came to those people, fast forward to today, are you somebody who still stays peripherally connected? And when I say connected, reading about and learning about all the advancements in the exoskeletons that are coming out and these people who are able to quote unquote walk.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
I mean, it's amazing when you think about, because I think for a lot of us, we overlook how life-changing something like that would be for somebody because we've never lived with anything that debilitating.
Mm-hmm. And plenty of the guys that we were helping were people that their first stop was, Maryland. And whether it's getting orthotics or prosthetics or getting their first custom wheelchair, and coming to us, as they need upgraded or as they need to find something local when they move back home. So dealt with a fair amount of
I was going to say, so you mentioned Maryland. So a lot of your clients were service members?
Yeah, a fair amount. Enough for me to kind of hear those stories, see their specific challenges. And yeah, it was like in a world where I never served our country and would never even put myself near that comparison. I always felt like I wanted to serve somehow. But I did get out of that industry. It was an industry that was at the time sinking. Sadly, we were an insurance billing based business, and we were finding ourselves at one point thriving, and due to regulations, changes in billing, unfortunate bad operators in the industry, making the rest of us look bad and doing fraudulent things, like every industry, right? That unfortunately it was twice the work for half the pay, right? And I didn't really see how I could continue my upward trajectory with my career and the need to be able to start, putting away money and saving for a house and all these things, because that was right when we were, early stage, thinking about starting a family, and all that stuff. So it was a tough separation because it was a buddy of mine, and I helped kind of, diversify his business and kind of go into realms that were more nuanced and made us a little bit more of a standout in the area. Luckily, they're still doing great. One of the technicians that used to work with me that I helped train and kind of introduce to the world, he's kind of took over my spot and they're doing great. But at the time, it wasn't for me anymore. And it was a hard separation. We're still really good friends. I just saw him yesterday, actually. But there was, that weirdness for a little bit because he's like, dude, you're leaving me stranded. And I'm like, I know. And it's the worst feeling ever. I've been thinking about it, but this is what I have to do. And I only did it because I had an opportunity with my next career path. As you kind of mentioned the finance thing, this was when I was kind of introduced to finance, but it was still a sales role. But I worked for American Express. I got a job doing corporate sales, reaching out to CEOs and CFOs of, middle-sized businesses, a few $1 million up to, a few $100 million. Had the opportunity of working in the Temecula Murrieta area for a while, Orange County area for a while, in San Diego. And again, another opportunity for me to add to my toolkit, because not only are you learning the art of the sale or opening doors or closing business, which you have to in that environment, I'm learning about how people make money. And you're talking to visionaries. You're talking to one-of-ones and people that are, incredible what they do, and learning, how did you get to this point? And their stories are also interesting. A lot of them come from nothing. And so that just got me into the entrepreneurial spirit. I was like, geez, man, someday, I really want to do something, I want to break free of corporate America and do something by myself. But I didn't want to do it just to do it. It had to be the right fit. So American Express provided me the financial ability to invest in Gameday. It was a great job. Had I stuck around there, I probably could have retired in another 5 years. It was great, but it was not providing me with what I wanted as far as peace of mind, serving. It was just a paycheck. And so
that's what you were doing when the day you walked into Gameday, mm-hmm. as a patient.
Mm-hmm.
Let's use you as the test case, so to speak. You mentioned that leading up to it, you're, if I'm understanding correctly, you're still working out, eating the same, but you're starting to put on weight. So a lot of factors start to come into play that make you want to start going down this path. So what exactly were you experiencing that really kind of, and how does TRT get on your radar, or was it even on your radar when you went into Gameday?
It was. So though still fairly new and less resources and information out there, with enough studying, you can start coming to conclusions, or at least what you believe could be the cause of what's going on. But yeah, you're right. It was it was poor sleep. And I'm like, the chicken and the egg here is what's causing the poor sleep and what's causing me to be tired at 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and are they correlated?
Were you always a good sleeper prior to this point? Was it just kind of a small, and I say a small window, but a small period in your life where all of a sudden you just weren't sleeping well anymore?
Yeah, so I never thought of it. I mean, it was never an issue that was brought up, right? I never thought about sleep. It was just sleep. Now fast forward, I'm already on TRT is when the kids are, come around. So actually, no, the kids were already born. So yeah, the kids were probably a factor, but the kids slept good. I mean, after the first few months, I can't complain that I was the dad having to get up 10 times a night. Overall, we were pretty blessed having twins. They slept pretty good after, the first 6 or 7 months. I didn't know if it was stress from the job. I didn't know what had changed in me that made me start feeling less energetic. Brain fog, which is the worst feeling ever. You feel like you're having jet lag, right? And then just having to be high output, high performing in sales is a grind, right? So not that I studied cortisol, not that I understood stress causes XYZ. That all happened a lot later when I started to understand the human body better. But at the time, I'm like, I don't know what's causing what, but something's off. And so I kept reading that, hey, well, if you have more than one of these symptoms, it could be X. And yet a lot of that was probably just the keywords I punched into Google, and maybe I was hitting up these sites that offer the service. So maybe it was kind of like that. They're using keyword searches to kind of steer you. But I did my own research too. There wasn't much because, again, the the older antiquated studies that have been debunked a million times now told a different story. And the lab numbers back in the day were telling you a different story. You're normal. What does that mean? I'm normal. And so I just wanted to check it out. I was just curious. It wasn't like I was committing to anything at the time. I just wanted to know this might be it, whether I decide to do something about it or not. But most traditional doctors won't even put your total testosterone or your free testosterone or any of those types of lab panels on your annual labs. I've had buddies who are in their 50s, 60s, and even 70s who see expensive concierge doctors and they don't put testosterone levels on their annual labs, even though it's like an incredible indicator of health, vitality, energy, and can be the cause of so many different symptoms. It's not customary to do that. I think it's changing. I think more and more are doing that. But at the time it was very minimal. And so, yes, found Gameday after, trialing and not necessarily liking what I saw with the other options. And they just did it right.
But overall, at that point in time, still working out regularly and your diet was dialed in. It was just the sleep and energy issue.
Yeah. So the way I look at it is if you're doing everything the same, even if it's not great, even if it's not perfect, most people aren't doing things perfectly. I'm trying a lot better these days, but even now I'm not perfect. If you're doing all the same things that you've always done, and then you fall off a cliff, there's something going on, right? Something's broken, or something is misfiring, or something caught up to you finally. Whatever it may be, it's not aging. I know guys who are in their 80s who are still running marathons, and I know guys in their 40s who can barely walk a block, right? It's not aging. It's the most overused term I think I've ever heard when making excuses for how people feel. So when I started TRT, again, and the experience was great. It was no nonsense. I was in there for maybe an hour and 20 minutes, and I was including drawing my labs, which they send out to get evaluated, like a comprehensive panel, doing your total testosterone, and a couple other required labs in-house with the equipment to having a lab in-house, which is pretty unique, I thought. Getting those results, talking to the clinician, going through all that information, talking about symptoms, all these things within an hour. I was like, this seems pretty crazy. And then, boom, you're on treatment. And I started feeling better, again, within a month or so, and then started feeling really good about 2 months in. Again, I didn't change anything else. Now, looking back at it, I wish I would have used that new fuel and really said, okay, this is the time where I'm really kind of reassess everything I'm doing, those late night beers or whatever, and really dial in. But whatever, at the time, I felt better, and that was enough for me. Now I'm looking at things very differently. The way I approach my men is different. The way that we talk about what are your actual goals, and letting them know that TRT is an unbelievable springboard, an unbelievable spark plug. But if you tell me this, but you're not willing to put in the effort, then I can only promise you this, right? Like, it's the reason why we got a good pump in the gym when we were 20 years old is because we had ideal testosterone levels, right? And growth hormone levels. As we age, our body needs more protein. It needs more of these things because we become resistant to it, and we are unable to absorb as much of it. So there's so many things that have to happen holistically to really get outcomes. But if you're building, if you're trying to build on sand, right? The foundation of all this is ideal hormones, not normal hormones, but optimized hormones. I hate using that phrase, but like the word normal is also, I think, overused. And when we explain what normal means, most of the guys get frustrated because you're talking about a delta between like 250 and 1,000, and anybody within that gap is considered normal. Well, how the heck can a person at 1,000 and a person at 250 be considered the same? That's 5 times the amount of testosterone in their body. So it's just education and speaking to these guys at a level they can understand, because it can be overwhelming.
Stupid question. Is testosterone level directly or correlated to your overall mass, your height, weight. If some guy is 5'1" and he's 100 pounds and there's some guy who's 6'4", 280, is that naturally going to have any impact on testosterone?
No. Just like nobody's big boned. No, it has to do with the ratio in your body, not the total amount. It's not like a bigger gas tank, more testosterone. It's just the ratio and the percentage per deciliter. And so, yeah, some guys naturally have great testosterone, but those numbers are dropping considerably every decade, to the point now where, there's been, and again, there's a little bit of, we'll say, overdoneness, but they're saying that, young men these days have the testosterone of 70-year-olds from back in the 90s. But when you look at the charts, 576 was considered the beginning of low normal back in the 90s. And now they're saying that if you're over 250, you're normal. Well, and then again, numbers are only a small piece of this puzzle, because some guys can thrive on a certain number and other guys feel terrible on that same number. So if that's all you're trying to approach is how can we get somebody to a certain number, you're kind of failing them, and you're not understanding how the body works, because there's a lot more to it than just total testosterone. There's free testosterone, which is even a more important indicator that's not talked about enough. And that's how much you have available to use. And so I think of it as like a computer with RAM. If you have a small computer with only half a gigabyte of RAM, but you only have your web browser open, that's ample. That's sufficient, right? You could have 2 gigabyte or a terabyte of RAM, but if you have so many systems open that you only have 5 or 10% of that available, how is your computer going to run? So the free testosterone is something that I think is not discussed enough. Oh, my buddy said I need to be XYZ total testosterone. Oh, my doctor said this. That number to me is insignificant. It's how much do you have available to use that's not bound up, being used by something else. And there's things that can bind up testosterone and make it unusable in the body. And not to get too medical about it, but yeah, there's certain panels you can test to see if these certain things are binding up and preventing the body from using testosterone. So as we find, we're using the numbers as a starting point, but it's primarily to allow someone to understand, yeah, it's not ideal, but very few guys are coming in that are sitting there at 800 or 1,000 naturally. Some do. And if they still feel like junk, then we have to reassess. Maybe it's not testosterone, or maybe it still is an issue with testosterone because their free level is so low. So then there's something else going on where they have all testosterone, but it's being bound up. A bit complicated, but that's the importance of like these very personalized plans, a lot of fine tuning. You don't just set it and forget it. I've heard of guys saying, well, the place I go to, everybody gets X amount. I'm like, that seems like a really bad idea. Some guys only need a little bit to feel better. Some guys need a whole lot more. Some guys need to take it weekly. Some take it multiple times a week in smaller doses because their body doesn't react the same. And then ultimately, what's the rest of your lifestyle? You have this great fuel. We figured the numbers out. We got you dialed in the best we can as far as the labs go. But what else is going on in your life? And that's why, when I have so many first responders come in and we've just learned that it does help them significantly feel better, but we have to work on things like sleep, fitness, hydration, nutrition, stress management. So we're trying to be more holistic and make sure that these guys don't feel like it's just an injection equals I'm going to flip the script of feeling terrible for the last 10 years. It's a good starting point. And I think it's required. I think most guys will be on TRT in the next 5 to 10 years. I think every guy over the age of 35 or 40 will most likely be on TRT just because there's so many benefits. I mean, even RFK lifted the black box ban for women's hormone replacement therapy this week and smashing all those old concepts that put women just in a terrible position over the last 10 to 20 years. and allowing them to be able to potentially get this stuff covered, or at least not looking at it as some sort of snake oil or some sort of dangerous procedure for them. There's so many benefits to it. But yeah, that foundation is key. Then you build from there. You mentioned peptides or, different other therapies and the nutrition and the fitness and all these things. But you have to have the foundation, or else you're never going to build up properly.
There's two aspects that I want to first hit on. I hate the fact that you're taking away my playing the old guy card. Is there a component, though, that is somebody comes to you, and I want to get into what symptoms somebody should start, if they're seeing these, they should come see a facility like yours. But you mentioned, potentially 10 years from now, everybody over 40. Well, I'll just use that. But let's say a guy's 60 and he ends up coming to you. You're not going to make him feel, you might be able to make him feel 25 again, but his body's not going to perform as a 25-year-old per se. On the same token, can you come to see you because it's the new buzzword? And as you mentioned earlier, where once you get on TRT, you stay on it in theory indefinitely. You come in and at 35, you start getting on treatments. Is it going to be something where you're going to progressively have to increase the dosages or the frequency or whatever it is because you started so young? So those are the kind of the two angles where I was thinking about from an age perspective.
Yeah. So we'll start with the older gentlemen who come in. And you've said, they might feel, but they might not operate at that young level. I would say it's slightly not inaccurate, but there's more context to that.
Got it.
So I feel better than I've felt since. I think I actually feel better now than I've ever felt. Right. And so, yes, I've done a lot of things specifically to get to that point, but I had to have the foundation.
Right.
The word optimize is used way too much. What I've been trying to kind of educate on is step one is to restore you, back to where you should be. And then from there, if you're interested, then we'll elevate you from there. But restoration and then elevation to where not every guy says, this is the best I've felt in so many years. I'd rather have guys say, this is the best I've ever felt. It's not an impossible task. It just requires discipline from the patient because it's a lifestyle change. But as far as just TRT itself, some guys, they only come in because of ED problems. Now, of course, when we start to peel back the onion, they have a lot of other issues, but that wasn't the primary reason that they came calling, right? Because we do offer some very unique ED solutions at our clinic too. So when we start discussing symptoms, we're like, well, ED. And those stories are always sad and terrible. And, your heart goes out to them because these guys have been struggling with it and they haven't told anybody. And it's obviously, affecting their marriage and all these things. So when they finally get the courage to call, we take it very seriously. We're very sensitive and very understanding of the conversations. I try to take a lot of them, because I want to often hear from a guy first. And simply, as I start to discuss, okay, well, how long have you had it? Do you have any of the other symptoms? What have you done in the past to try to figure it out? And we find out that, lo and behold, what their main issue probably is low testosterone. Not always. It could be a diabetic history. It could be injury. It could be a prostate issue. There's a lot of things it could be. I'm just saying, if I look at the sample size, a lot of these guys is because of decreased testosterone production. So, yes, these guys can operate at a high level again, or the guy who the low testosterone causes the low sleep, causes the brain fog, and it's a slippery slope into gaining weight, depression, drinking, all that stuff. And just by getting them to feel good again, like the story of Joe, getting them to feel themselves again, all those things start to reverse themselves. So can we reverse the hands of time? Well, I can't turn a 65-year-old body into a 20-year-old body, but I can increase muscle mass, increase bone density, take off visceral fat, take off body fat, improve cognition, improve quality of life. So there's health span and there's lifespan, right? We're trying to increase people's health while they're alive versus the people that spend 10, 15 years being cared for, right? So a lot of those things happen with these older men where they're coming in for longevity. The younger guys, they're coming in because they don't feel right. First responders, they're like, hey man, I'm Riverside County Sheriff and I'm 37 years old and I have 2 kids and a wife. I got 15, 20 years left on the force and I don't think I'm going to make it with how I feel right now. They're coming in just trying to find ways to survive. And lo and behold, a lot of these issues, mentally and physically, that they're all kind of connected. And if we can get their hormone levels dialed in, they start feeling better. Now they're operating better at work. They're operating better at home. Relationships are improving. And, so it's kind of across the board what can be done when your systems are operating properly. Age doesn't really matter. I've had some of my best success stories, my best Google reviews. The guys who come in and bring my staff coffee and stuff, those are a lot of the older guys who really are like, wow, I thought I was stuck this way. So I think there's more to be said about that.
Factoring in specifically the first responder, and I'm assuming for a large component, the veteran community in this equation, somebody comes to see you, their sleep is jacked up, all this, the typical stuff like you were experiencing. But unlike you, who in theory, you work 9 to 5-ish, you were probably working a lot of hours, I get it, but you weren't working 3 o'clock in the morning, you weren't getting called in for shifts. So what I'm saying is, you come to you get on this program, but then you go to a job that's literally a meat grinder because it is inconsistent. Yeah, you're going to work a set shift, but you have no idea when that shift's going to end each day. You're going to have to end up going to court on your days off. You're going to get called in. There's so much that is outside the norm of what a traditional, hey, I'm a banker, I work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and I'm seeing the effects of not living the perfect life. And I like the fact that you're talking about it's addressing all aspects of a person's life. It's not just getting you on testosterone replacement therapy. It's let's look at your whole life. Let's improve your sleep. Let's improve your eating. Let's improve your physical fitness. But what I'm getting at is when you're dealing with a first responder, is some of it harder to counteract? I almost, in my mind, think.
It is, but their numbers are also usually more depleted, right? So their starting point's a lot lower because the cortisol has smashed them. The irregular sleep has smashed them. So, of course, my algorithm's all health these days. So, like, I get all the algorithm. I'm assuming some people may have seen this becoming more and more of a talk, though. But everybody's saying, hey, sleep needs to be looked at as a longevity tool. It's incredibly important. Talking to my brother-in-laws on the East Coast, who work crazy hours and it's all work. Or, the first responders who, even if they wanted to sleep, they couldn't. Whether it's because when they get home, it's daytime, or they get home and they can't wind down, or they get home and their kids are there, right? So sleeping is incredibly important because number one, it's when we reset our bodies for a bunch of systems. Number one is hormone production for men and women. That's when we restore what we've used. When we wake up in the morning, we have the fullest tank we're going to have. One tank's obviously fuller than the other, depending on the person, right? That's a total number. But that's the highest it's going to be all day. And then as we go throughout the day, we use that fuel, and then sleep's the only way to restore it. Deep sleep and REM sleep. And ultimately, you want to get a couple cycles of that if possible. That's why they always say 7+ hours of good sleep is kind of like a non-negotiable to fully restore yourself. Same with growth hormone.
I just heard or saw something recently. They said that they're looking at old studies, which are actually, if I remember correctly, they're saying that one extended period of 7 or 8 hours sleep is not optimal. It's actually more optimal to sleep out 4 or 5 hours, get up, and then do another 4 or 5 hours. I don't know. I didn't look into it. I caught I don't want to necessarily say the headline, but I caught a brief thing and I didn't dig more into the story. Yeah. But they were basically saying that one continuous sleep was not the optimal sleeping pattern. I was like, huh.
It's something to look into, and you're either learning or you're fighting learning by defending a position. I'm always learning. I don't ever want to assume I know it all. I'm changing my opinion on things all the time on what information I'm bringing in. But what I do know is that restorative sleep is required, whether it's the work in the gym you put in. People think, oh, I go to the gym 5 days a week. Well, yeah, but how often? Well, how's your recovery? How much protein are you taking in? How much sleep are you getting? You're not gonna gain muscle mass if you're working out and not sleeping. You're getting a small percentage of the outcome that you could be getting, right? So yeah, growth hormone production, testosterone production, recovery from your brain, recovery your cortisol, recovery from your the gym work, and the muscle recovery. All those things happen with sleep. Well, unfortunately, whether it's due to lifestyle or out of your control, like so many of our first responders, they're doing anything they can. And unfortunately, they go down the road of popping pills, melatonin, nighttime PM meds, all these things that, again, can wreak havoc on your body, can create abuse or dependency, and don't ever solve the core root issue. So because they're not replenishing their testosterone, some of these guys may not have had an issue with testosterone levels prior to service. The service and their lifestyle and the stressors created that. It's very common. So if we can at least try to get them back to a level playing field, they're going to feel better. Is it going to fix their root cause? It can't until they can adjust their lifestyle, right? So you can call it duct tape, but they feel a whole lot better.
Right.
And when they can finally start to sleep a little bit better, having optimized testosterone levels can help you fall asleep quicker, can help you calm that mind down a little bit better. There's also supplements. I mean, I'm a big supplement guy. I prefer supplements and natural supplements over meds all day long, if possible. So I even talk to guys about supplements that they should consider to help with sleep, to help with anxiety, that kind of stuff, versus hopping into big pharma and taking these medications that aren't bioidentical. They aren't produced in the human body. So we try to get guys to like have as little as possible to get the outcomes they want, and try to stay away from traditional meds as much as possible and do it naturally. But unfortunately, hormones is something that you can't take as a supplement. It has to be something that's bioidentically created and taken in as an injection. There's pills and creams and stuff, and there's some efficacy to that. But if you're going to try to like do it the best way possible and have the best outcomes, it's still injections.
And you also said previously that it's a process of. So I'm just going to use generic numbers here. Somebody comes in, their testosterone level measures 300. You start them on a program, and let's say at 400, they're like, man, I feel great. Do you stop there, or do you go, okay, well, let's get you to 450 and see how you feel? Or is it almost, I know this is going to sound like a stupid question, but if 400's great, 800's got to be that much greater.
It's all personal. It's all individual. If we never showed a guy their number ever again and just worked and just talked to them about their symptoms and how they feel, and we'd look at the numbers, make sure everything looks safe, but they didn't know it, a lot of these guys would be surprised. But there is enough evidence out there showing ideally over a certain number is when you can really kind of like hit your stride. Thus, the number of 576 back in the 90s was considered the starting point of being low, right? We don't want guys to just get to a certain number because of a lab panel. We want to get to guys to where they're feeling their best. You're not going to notice a 100-point difference only because we can swing 200 to 300 points ourselves in a day because of what we start with and what we end with.
Got it.
So there has to be some consideration as far as what is your peak and what is your trough or your low point. And I'm not a clinician. I'm just, Joe Schmo, anecdotal, living the world and seeing the world from my point of view. But I'm seeing guys typically thriving over 700 and probably closer to 800 and 900. It's kind of like that sweet spot. Some guys need more, but again, decades ago, 1,200, 1,300, even 1,400 was not considered super abnormal. You start getting above that, it's more of a conversation of a gym guy trying to.
I was just eating a lot of chicken and rice.
Yeah, it's a gym guy who has certain goals in mind and is probably a little bit.
Man, you got a lot of back acne.
Yeah. So I found that in the beginning, I thought it was more of a set it and forget it. You learn as you go. Now we're into this pretty deep, and I've heard, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stories and seen hundreds and hundreds of reactions to therapy and how long it takes to get people to that sweet spot. A lot of them come from other places. A lot of them have tried online. They've tried other places. And over and over and over again, when I take that call, I'm saying, well, why'd you call me? Number one, the reviews are super powerful, right? And a lot of these guys are first responders, and in general, a lot of guys don't take the time to fill out a review. So when that review is a paragraph long, and you get hundreds and hundreds of those over time,
right?
Versus just like 5-star or like, it was cool, right? It means the guys felt something. It was visceral, whether it was that first experience or a follow-up visit or whatever. But they said the reason why, whether it's because I was referred to you or I read your review or whatever the reason, is because I felt like I wasn't getting personalized care where I was. I didn't feel listened to. I felt like I was getting the same program as everybody else. I would bring up issues and concerns and they would dismiss it. Unfortunately, that sounds more like traditional medicine to me than concierge medicine. So maybe those companies are not necessarily in it for the right reason. This is my new way of serving men and serving the world and serving first responders. And so to me, yeah, it's a business. It's a newer business. It's has its own flaws, dealing with pharmacies and dealing with all the things you can imagine having a medical facility in California. But ultimately, when we do things for men, they feel it. Guys are very intuitive. Guys understand BS versus when you're keeping it real with them. And they can tell when it's self-serving or not. I'm the same way. I was raised that way. And so like, it's pretty much our mission and kind of our foundation at least my clinic. I can't speak for all of them, but at my clinic specifically, that's how we live and breathe our business. And most of my staff are either previous first responders or married a first responder. And it doesn't mean that we don't see everybody under the sun. We see, not that Murrieta has a ton of like traditional white collar commuters. There's some, but 70%, 80% of our patient base is blue collar first responder. And people are surprised by that. I think they're surprised. Like, I thought it'd be the guy that has the expensive concierge doctor and he's just, has all this, extra cash flow to throw around. I'm like, no, these guys are coming in because they're in tune to their body, especially when they have physical labor jobs. A lot of truck drivers, a lot of construction guys, a lot of small business owners, and first responders. And they all have a lot of things in common. the pencil pusher and the desk job guy, they still have a lot of these concerns, but it's not in their face as much because they're not out there using their hands every day and realizing that they're slipping physically as much.
Well, I don't think that they're careers that you mentioned the deputy who's, let's say, 40 years old, 15 years on the job. They're looking at, man, I got to go another 15, 20 years, whatever it is. That job that they're doing at 40, you talk about the pencil pusher, the guy sitting behind the desk. The guy doing it at 40, pushing the pencil behind the desk, even if the young kid comes in at 25, there's nothing per se measurable from a physical standpoint that he's going to have to do that the 25-year-old is or is not doing it. The 40-year-old deputy, he's still got to go out and perform like the 25-year-old. He's still got to go out and deal with the public who's 18 to 25 years old. So it's a career that, as you get older, still demands that you operate as a young person, man or woman. It's like I love that that saying that you see is, be fearful of a person, man or a woman, who's in a career that it takes most young people from it. So if there's still an old person doing it, be fearful of them. And so I think that's the biggest factor to the first responder and veteran communities is the man or the woman who's still on the line at 40 or 45 is still going to be held to the standard of the 25-year-old from a physical perspective.
Yeah. You mentioned veteran, and so it got me thinking when I was driving up here today. Number one, it was Veterans Day, right? So that's still fresh in my mind. People always express gratitude, thanks for your service. And it's like, okay, words are great, but like we need to be actually serving them, right? And what I'm seeing, and what I've seen with the veteran community that come in to see me, and what your podcast's whole concept is, there's a lot of similarities.
If you're like me and you love your coffee, my go-to lately has been Blue Line Roasting. They're a Tennessee-based and law enforcement-owned company, roasting small batches of premium beans. You've got choices from Patriot, which is their light roast, to Failure Drill, their dark roast. They roast all their beans fresh, within 48 hours, and ship them to you even faster. You can also get your beans ground for you or delivered whole. Your choice. But here's the cool part. A portion of what you spend goes to support law enforcement families dealing with the impact of line of duty injuries or loss. You get an incredible coffee, and they get the help they need. Choose a single bag, a sample pack, or start a subscription so you're never out of coffee. Oh, and shipping is always free. Also, for the listeners of this podcast, use the promo code TRANSITION10 to get 10% off your purchase. So head over to bluelineroasting.com and make every cup count.
A lot of these guys started to see themselves slip because their loss of structure. And so that's when these conversations become very personal, because I can tell you with most certainty why you've started to feel terrible. And that is probably part of that is, your testosterone levels have been dipping, but it's also that chicken and the egg, because you can actually have lower production because of your lifestyle, or your lower production genetically can cause you to feel like crap and change your lifestyle. So you can't put the blame on one or the other. Every situation is different, but the lack of structure, getting out of these roles of service, I'm seeing a lot of consistencies with that conversation. And so it really got me thinking, like, we need to talk a lot more to these guys, again, about their lifestyle, about how did you feel when you were in service? Yeah, you were stressed, but like, how did you feel, when you were so active duty? And when did you start feeling like things were changing? And almost always there was that point where, like, it was when I got out and it was a certain period of time and I felt lost. I felt disconnected, and the mind's a powerful thing. And that in itself can create chaos, again, with cortisol and all these different things and these chemical imbalances that can occur with stress, or the feeling of not having purpose. And there's a lot of consistency with those guys that come in. A lot of them feel that way.
Well, you brought up the perfect example. You grew up in a smaller or smallerish town, small town. You left, you went to Korea for a year. When you came back, it wasn't the same. It hadn't changed. You were different. It didn't give you what it gave you before. You take a veteran or a first responder and they step off this train that's moving at 100 miles an hour. You could still stick them in the middle of New York City, but they're not part of that train anymore. It's going to be different. Everything around them doesn't move as fast as what it used to. And for a lot of men and women, it's hard to replicate that. It's hard for their body to feel right again, I would say, because they don't have, whether you want to call it adrenaline, whatever it is, but something. You've used the analogy, or you've said before, that we're very adaptive. We get used to that thing that is these careers. And when you take it away from us, there's few things that give us that same internal sense of, and I'll use the word movement. There's just an equilibrium to it. There's a sense to it. And if you aren't prepared to step off that train, it's going to rattle your world.
So I've used the phrase, an object in motion stays in motion, but the opposite is also true, right? So if your world is so structured that you don't have to think about what to do next, and that includes the requirement of physical activity, very predictable next steps, and then you stop. To get that momentum again requires a new mission. Well, a lot of these guys haven't figured out what that mission is. And so, yes, their mission is to be a father and a husband and whatever career path they've jumped into. But it, like you said, doesn't feel the same. So, because of my natural kind of curiosities, my natural propensity to try to help, we talk about, like, your new mission is to get yourself back to feeling your best. Do you accept this mission? Right? The ones who do, we see incredible before and after stories in a much shorter period of time than I think people think. But you have to go all in. But sometimes those plans, those protocols have to be adjusted to that person's lifestyle and to the reality. Not everybody has the ability to do X, Y, and Z every single day at a certain speed or a certain intensity. But it's just small, tiny little improvements every day over time. And then you look back at the graph, and the graph goes like this. But every day you don't really see much, right? Or if you see somebody who's lost a bunch of weight, you see it immediately, but their spouse probably doesn't even see it. They don't notice it as much. Or someone who got in a really good shape, or the opposite, or someone who's unfortunately gone in the other direction. But it's a little tiny bit every day. You can't get fat eating 5,000 calories in one day. It's physically impossible. It has to be done over a long period of time. The same with losing weight, same with putting on muscle, same with resetting your brain, the same with, trying to deal with stressors better and anger management. It's not an overnight thing. It's a mission that you're committing to, and every day you wake up, you're disciplined, and there's non-negotiables. You go to work to get paid, you have to work out. You have to get X amount of grams of protein. You have to do X, Y, Z. It's a non-negotiable as part of your new mission. And a lot of the guys like that because it is a new form of structure, right? It's just, you got to kind of fine tune it because every guy's different and everybody has their own responsibilities that are also non-negotiable. But your own health can't be elective. You have to take it the same, because guess what? Do you want to be that active parent when you're in your 60s or 70s, or grandparent? Do you want to be the person that has a strong heart but a weak body who lives in a nursing home for 15 years of their life? Or do you want to have your life be fulfilled until those final days? That's the kind of stuff that I talk about now. That wasn't what I was talking about when I first opened. Number one, it wasn't anything I really knew enough about. I made a big change for myself over the last 12 months. I've lost a bunch of weight. I've made myself healthy and done all these things. More as like leading from the front. Like, I don't want to have this clinic and tell these guys what to do, and I don't look the part, right? And also I have young kids, so I'm like, there's too many reasons that make sense for me to not go in the direction of testing all these things out. Whether it's what we offer in the gym, or it's concepts, or it's just generalized discipline and every day doing something versus doing nothing. A terrible workout's better than no workout at all. Some of these guys, they just don't, it's not programmed into them yet. So just having a mentor or just a new voice talk to them about the potential of just like, hey, if you can't do this, can you do this? Right now you're doing this. How about we just try this? Tiny little things. 6 months later, you know, these guys are coming in. They're like family to us. And the stories they tell and how much we've changed their life, saved their life, made their life better. Their wives reaching out to us and sending us letters and notes and that kind of stuff. That's what keeps us going. But I think there's just too many guys give up, or like some of your podcasts where, you know, whether it's from the PTSD concept or the mental health concept or what have you, they don't know where to start because there's too much information and it's all conflicting or confusing. And we love our Veterans Administration. We love all these other programs that help out first responders and veterans, but they're massive systems that can't change quickly. And they're triaging and they're dealing with crisis. They're not dealing with health optimization. They don't have the resources for that. That's why the guys come to us, because they don't have that through their systems. They should. I hope that's kind of where things are going. But currently there aren't enough resources for first responders and military to get these types of services.
With the growth and popularity of the GLP-1, Ozempics, those type things, are those in contradiction to TRT, or is it something that it can all work together?
Yeah, they're complementary systems. And I think GLPs get the same contradictory, confusing level of information as TRT does. I think they're in the same boat as far as misunderstanding of what they truly are, what they're designed for, what they can do. Because you either hear these incredible success stories or you hear the opposite. And, GLP-1, GLP-2, which is tirzepatide, and even retatrutide, which is going to be the third one coming out soon. These things are powerful, incredibly effective, and not just weight loss. Improved insulin sensitivity, improved metabolism, all kinds of metabolic markers that improve, fatty livers, and all these things that are just going away. Adipose, visceral fat, which is the fat that surrounds your organs, the heart attack fat and disease fat, that melting away. A lot of benefits to this stuff. But here's what we keep coming across. The swindlers, the miseducated, the money grab type places out there, all they're doing is selling the concept. They're not monitoring it and they're not educating. When used incorrectly, what do you get? You get all the things people talk about negatively. You get the people that are quote unquote skinny fat. They lose all this weight, but they also lose muscle. Well, muscle takes 4 to 5 times longer to put on than it does to lose. So we have to make that the primary concern, or the primary focus is when you're losing weight rapidly, you must maintain your muscle mass. Here's how you do it. We won't even let guys start on GLP therapy if they don't at least give us a verbal commitment that they're going to do the bare minimum. Because we don't want to be part of the negative story. We want to be part of the positive story. These guys taught us, educated us, showed us the way. I've lost 30 pounds. I've maintained my muscle mass. I look great. I feel great. But when done incorrectly, it can be a train wreck, right? You can mess up your metabolism to where when you stop taking it, you're worse off than when you started. So I have nothing against them whatsoever when they're done properly and for the right type of person. But having testosterone is great because it's going to help you maintain that muscle mass. And you should be doing some sort of weight training to stimulate the muscles during weight loss, a fast weight loss. So again, stimulation of the muscle mass, the increase of protein, and having your hormone levels dialed in. Those are all ideal situations for rapid weight loss and taking these medical therapies for it. So no, they're great when used together and when used properly.
I hit on this before, so I want to come back around to it. So somebody's listening, they're either on the fence or they don't know if they should come see you. What are some of the things that they should be looking for in themselves that are indicators like, hey, I should go see someone like you?
Yeah, I think I kind of touched on it with how I felt, where you're doing a lot of the same things, but you're not steady anymore. You're going this way with how you feel in multiple aspects of your life, but you haven't changed. That'd be a first indicator for me. Whether it's ED, whether it's weight gain, whether it's energy levels, whether it's poor sleep, whether it's loss of strength, loss of muscle mass. A lot of my guys come in and it's not common or as common as I wish, but they come in and they tell me exactly what they're doing. And I'm like, you're 99% there. We need to check your testosterone. Because they already started their health journey. They didn't want to get on testosterone therapy. They wanted to do everything possible to see if they could feel better without it. Even guys who come in, they're just going to check their number and figure it out. And then they're like, well, you know what? I'm going to try to do it myself for 3 months. I encourage it. I want them to do that. If you're going to commit and have discipline and do all these things, let's see how you feel in 3 months. Do you feel how you think you should feel? Or do you feel like, holy Lord, I literally worked my tush off, ate right, did everything that could be asked of me, and I still don't feel great. Now, a telltale sign something's going on. So, yeah, I think for some guys, again, it could be one symptom, but it's a symptom that's, we'll say, concerning enough, like having severe ED or that midday brain fog. Sometimes that midday brain fog can be paralyzing for your career, for everything. So it's enough to get checked out. If you're literally every day between X time and another time, hit this virtual wall and your body's saying, I need a nap. You shouldn't have that feeling. Even in your 50s and 60s, people are like, oh, I get older, people take naps. That's usually hormone regulation.
Naps are just fun.
What's that? Well, no.
Naps are just fun.
And again, they're very healthy to do, but if you feel that you have to nap because you're not being productive, that's a concern. I'm full of energy now. I used to hit a wall. I'm telling you, I can't even tell you. Those long drives you have where you're kind of doing I was doing that at the computer screen every single day for probably a year and a half. Super frustrating. Didn't matter. The coffee didn't help. Nothing worked. So that was my aha moment. Like, okay, something's up. But I would simply say it doesn't hurt to check your numbers. Right?
Now, you mentioned we trough or up and down in a given day. So to get a baseline, do you have the person give samples at varying times or varying days, or is just one sample enough?
Multiple samples could be helpful if you're just trying to find out what their average number is. But as I've mentioned before, it's a starting point. They didn't come in because they knew their numbers were low. They came in because they had symptoms. And when we're going through the questionnaire and when I'm having personal conversations, I'm asking pretty deep questions to get an understanding. Do you only feel like crap in the evenings? Like, tell me about when these happen, how it happens, if something leads up to it happening, etc. I want a full picture of what's going on. And most of the time, it's kind of universal.
Got it.
Right?
And even with the fluctuation that the natural body has, if they're coming to you, likely they're already so low that even on their highest point for the day, they're still well below where they need to be. So it really doesn't matter what their fluctuation is.
Correct. And again, some guys on a traditional lab test, it would show that they're normal. And that's the frustrating part. Because then it's now he said, she said, and we have to actually explain to them. Number one, are you coming in to fit into a bell curve of every adult male in the country and be left of center? Or do you want to elevate to what your opportunity is, what your peak is? What does feeling better mean? What is your actual goal? Some guys have very different goals than others, but sometimes it's because they don't have enough self-confidence to believe they can hit a different goal. That was me a year ago, right? I said, screw it, I'm going all in. And so we don't push it. Like there's some guys that come in and they're incredibly overweight, and they think that just doing TRT is going to solve the problem. And I simply say, yes, it's going to be helpful, but we really got to talk about a lot of other things here. Like, are you looking to lose weight? They always say yes, but they're still shy of the GLP-1s, and that's fine. We never push it. We educate though, because a lot of times they come in with misinformation. But again, we let them start the way they want to start. That way they feel like they're driving. And when they come back, I say, you know what? You're right. Or let's discuss this next thing we could possibly do. It doesn't always make sense to throw everything in the fire at once, right? You start with the basics. I always say that you have to get the foundation down. If it's an ED guy, testosterone check. If it's a guy overweight, testosterone check. Because a lot of it stems from that. And then from there, let's say 3 months in to somebody who has depleted testosterone numbers and severe ED, and let's say they come in with optimized or ideal testosterone numbers, the ED has gone down or gone away significantly, but it's still some there. Okay? Well, guess what? We've made vast improvements, but there's work to do. The guy who comes in and says, I feel great, this and that. Okay, now that you feel great, you're sleeping good, you feel more energy to go to the gym, now let's talk about nutrition. Now let's talk about sleep. Now let's talk about hydration. The basics. A lot of people don't know the basics. They're still living, when people said that creatine made you bloated. Like, there's a lot of information that's so old and so outdated that we're simply trying to reintroduce concepts to them slowly, because those little things over time can make a huge benefit, but you have to have that foundation figured out.
Well, I think that I don't want to use the word cyclical, but the fitness industry usually is ahead of the curve in the keto, for instance. When keto got real popular, bodybuilders have been doing keto for years. It's just lower the carbs, increase the proteins, but it was never a lifestyle diet. It was more of a cutting, so it's the concepts are there. Creatine, people who are, I'll use the word nerds. When you give them time, they're going to learn, oh wait, creatine gives me this benefit, but here are some of the counter benefits that I have to be aware of and deal with. But where the average person who's just looking for the quick fix, they hear the GLP-1. I'm just going to take the GLP-1, and not, like I said, they're not getting the advice of, all right, you're losing all this weight massively and rapidly. You need to up your protein. You need to keep your working out. People talk about creatine. Yes, if you take a lot of creatine, it retains water. If you're not countering it properly, you could have a bloated effect. So it's getting a little bit of the information, jumping on that train, and not really understanding all that's involved in it. Yeah,
it's sound clips. You get sound clips, and again, as you say, the health industry. Well, of course, my algorithm is skewed, but now they're saying creatine should be used by everybody because it shows incredible cognitive benefit to potentially reduce or prevent Alzheimer's. And
I've heard the brain thing recently. You should really be bumping it to 15,
10,
20.
15, 20. Yeah. I have zero bloating. I'm pretty vascular. I take 15 to 20 grams a day, and my labs look great.
You doing the gummies, or are you still at a powder?
Powder. Yeah. too many gummies. Because a gummy, I think, is 1. It's 1 gram. So 5 gummies is 5 grams. I'd be popping. No, I'd be popping 15 of them. No, it just goes into my pre-workout. But the whole point is, I've been guinea pigging because I truly want to know what works and what doesn't. A lot of people can't do that or don't want to do that. But at least now that I've tried and tested a lot of things, I have access to quick labs. I can try this for a little while, retest my labs, see how I truly feel. Did it actually help, or was it enough to actually make it worth adding to my protocol? Or is it like, it was all right? Or did it do nothing for me? And again, everybody's different. That's why some of these things are very popular, and maybe it didn't do much for me, but other times it's just hype. And there's so much of that. There's a ton of hype out there, a ton of misinformation, ton of negative information that shouldn't be negative anymore. It's old news, but people aren't staying up on it because guess what? That's not their life. It's not their job anymore. They heard it a long time ago and they believed it once, and it's going to stick with them. But the ones that are open to not defending themselves, but being an open book to learning new information as the information comes out and the studies come out, they're going to succeed because there's so much information out there. It's just, where do you get it from? I'm not saying I know everything, but the ones who tend to trust me, they know that I'm overstudied. I'm constantly researching. I'm constantly being a guinea pig. That's just who I am. Not saying every choice was the best, but now I think I have a pretty good protocol down. I feel pretty darn good for my age. And so I don't even think about, I turned 50, so it's kind of like, oh, you're over the hill, whatever, but I feel awesome. I would love for every single guy that walks into my clinic have that same goal in mind. One might take 6 months, one might take 12 months, one might take 24 months to get to that goal based on genetics, based on lifestyle, based on intensity, based on resources, based on budget, all that stuff. But if every guy had that ultimate goal, there'd be a lot of healthy people walking around. But unfortunately, fast food's cheap and easy. Sitting on the couch is pretty easy. Being disciplined is hard. But if you do it slowly over time, that discipline becomes habit. And then what used to be hard is now something that if you don't do it, you feel off. We all know that feeling. You work out for a long time. It feels great. You stop for whatever reason. Getting back into it is tough. But when you stop, but if you take a day or two off, you feel like, oh man, you feel itchy. Like you got to get back in the gym. It's not obsessive. You're just changing your focus. You're choosing that over some other unhealthy choice, but for some reason it's obsessive. It's like, no, it's not obsessive. That's why they call it dieting. It's like eating whole foods is considered dieting or overkill. No, it's just because we've gotten so accustomed to eating processed foods and junk and foods full of chemicals that can also disrupt the endocrine system, which can also cause low testosterone, which can also cause a lot of disease and stuff, right? Again, it's all coming out finally. The whole red dye stuff and the glyphosate the glyphosate going on the vegetables and all that stuff. It's all coming out. But unfortunately, we have a lot of people out there that just aren't tapped into that level of communication and education, so they're not being informed. And that's why we're still stuck where we are.
I still believe there's a little bit of the dollars and cents. And what I mean by that is you make fast food too convenient from a dollars and cents perspective. I can roll through Taco Bell, McDonald's, whatever, In-N-Out. For what I'm going to spend for the quantity of food I'm going to get compared to not being able to just drive through and get healthier food. There are more options today, but go back 10 or 15 years, you didn't have the ability to drive through. So you go back to the first responder community. That man or that woman who's working at 3 o'clock in the morning, what's open and available to them when they're starving and they're like, oh, I've got 14 calls racked and I need to get something in my stomach. Del Taco, give me that combo burrito because it's going to fill me up and it's going to be $1.99.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think I've created some protocols for people and I've tried to dollar and cents it. If you meal prep, it's way cheaper than fast food, right? And you get whole foods. And you can do it on a Sunday and have all the food for a week. Now, again, requires discipline, requires knowing where to start, how to do it. But, parents that want their kids to eat healthy, not eat junk, they do it. How do I get more protein in my diet? Or when you go to a fast food place, instead of getting burger, fries, Coke, get a double hamburger and add a third patty. And now you're getting a bun and 3 patties of meat.
Right.
So it's education on those concepts where you can still go to a place that has less than desirable healthy food and still make better choices and still get...
Well, that's where knowledge comes in.
Satiating food. Because again, carbs burn quickly and you're hungry again. That's why people snack so much. That's why there's so much obesity. If everybody ate protein as their primary source of nutrients and ate protein first, there wouldn't be snacking because protein is satiating. You can eat maybe a 10-ounce steak and you're pretty full, or a whole bag of chips, right? So again, trying to educate one person at a time. That's all I try to do, because unfortunately there's so many vices out there, so much miseducation, lack of education, lack of resources, or just not even knowing that there's an alternative depending on where you are demographically and with your education.
The only, and it is an excuse, and I get it, but I am going to play devil's advocate, especially for my first responders when it comes to meal prepping, because I remember the days working patrol and meal prepping, and you have to take food that can be eaten cold, because there are some men and women, ambulance crews, they don't even work out of a station. They literally work out of that rig their entire shift, and they might not have access to a microwave to heat their food. Or even if they can heat it, they may not have enough time to wolf it down. Mm-hmm. So I would say, yes, you can meal prep, but if you are that group that you just work a busy station, whatever, and you don't have the time to get back to a microwave, you got to meal prep stuff that can be eaten cold. So, your chicken and rice is great, but if you can't eat it...
Hard-boiled eggs, tuna, jerky.
And a lot of water, because it's not going to go down easy at all.
No, and here's the thing. It's all moderation. So if 5 meals a week aren't ideal, but when you make that choice at the fast food place, you're going to get the triple protein burger, omit the fries, omit the soda. Because soda, liquid calories are by far our biggest issue with obesity, by far. If people just drink black coffee, tea, and water.
They say people who drink black coffee are psychos.
Well, I'm one of them.
I love black coffee.
So, no, calories and beverages is horrible.
I don't even know anybody when I see somebody who drinks a regular Coke anymore, I'm like, wow, I can't tell you the last time I had not that diet. I understand the whole aspect of all the chemicals and stuff for diet, but just all the sugar calories.
Yeah. But just to sum it up, if your shift work's difficult and you try your best to meal prep, and a couple times a week, you say, screw it. But if you buy a bunch of hard-boiled eggs from Costco, and you got cheese, and you got some tuna, and you got, some nuts, and, that kind of stuff.
Oh, it's doable.
And it'll fill you up. But guess what? If you have to stop somewhere, just think protein first. Keep the carbs low, keep the fried stuff low, no liquid calories. And then the rest of the week, you got a high protein breakfast, you eat fairly healthy on the weekends, and you keep your body moving. You're not going to blow up and become sickly, out of shape, or sickly obese. That happens from making a lot of bad choices constantly. But again, there's no perfect opportunity for people to do everything the right way all the time, and nor should you. I break my own rules all the time, but I've gotten to a point now where I can do that without having the effects that it used to have on me. It's not as often. I still have some guilt afterwards sometimes. Other times I'm happy I did it. I'm like, oh man, that pizza was great, or whatever, and I'm stoked. You shouldn't have to live so... If you're in competition mode, or if you do it for your job, great. Or if you're just somebody who's completely dedicated to all those things, I got big respect for you. But the average person can still be incredibly fit, incredibly healthy with optimized hormones, healthy whole food eating, the occasional screw up, stay away from high calorie liquid beverages, focus on sleep, move your body, lift weights because it's a longevity organ. It's the most important thing. It keeps us independent long time. The cardio people out there, it's like, yeah, cardio is good for your heart, but if you're weak, what good is that? Like, you have to stay strong. You got to put equal or even more focus on lifting heavy things. So you can lift up the groceries, so you can lift up your grandkid, so you can open a jar. Like, those things, they seem trivial, but that's what you see with aging populations. The farmer who still lives on his farm at 94 years old versus the person who spent 15 years in a nursing home with a healthy heart.
In bringing this to an end, the one question that's kind of still rattling around in my head is, I would like for you to talk about what's the onboarding process with your company. So somebody walks through the door day one, what are they going to experience? What are they going to go through onboarding with you?
So that concept, or like the Gameday way, the process is repeatable and is straightforward. So you have a text messaging option, because a lot of guys, quick answers, yes, no, whatever. You'll get all the information sent to you and a link to fill out your basic intake forms, right? Your patient information, your history, your diagnosis, or your symptoms, et cetera. So that all goes in the system, so we can discuss that upon your arrival. You show up, you check in. Within a couple of minutes, we take you back. The nurses are amazing. They deal with guys every day. We had a patient today. Actually, if you look at my Instagram page, I posted it. One of our patients came in and brought everybody coffee. Right? He must really feel valued there. So it's a man cave concept. I always say, like, the lobby should be more like a team room versus a waiting room. And that's how guys feel. When I walk in there, depending on what time of day I even get there, every single time there's guys talking. Existing patients talking to new guys, right? Helping them to feel comfortable with the experience, and to, it helps validate us and have that trust level built in, because our guys are talking to our guys. That's the whole concept, versus that sterile, white-walled, transactional medical environment. But yeah, you go back, we do all the basic blood pressure, all that, check your hemoglobin, hematocrit levels. We'll draw your blood. That blood will be used in-house to test your testosterone levels. And then the rest of it goes out to LabCorp. If you sign up for services, we'll take that blood and send it off to LabCorp or some sort of lab facility and do a comprehensive panel. So we have that baseline figured out. If the numbers reflect that you could benefit from testosterone therapy and the numbers match up with the symptoms, like I said, it's basically just giving the guys peace of mind that, yeah, I was right. My low T is being caused by this, or my symptoms being caused by low T, or we'll say less than optimized. They'll have a meeting with the clinician, and it can be 20 minutes long or 40 minutes long. It's concierge medicine. We don't rush you. You can talk about whatever you want to talk about. And if you're ready to move forward, you start the same day. You'll actually get your first injection that day. And then 2/3 of the guys, they come in weekly to get injected. And then the other guys, they can have a mail out or shipped option. And we teach them how to do it and prep it and everything. And then the follow-up labs are going to be the most important piece of the process.
Is it generally a weekly injection?
Generally, but what we're finding is that a lot of guys actually are finding more benefit with smaller dosing more often. But if you can get away with once a week, it's obviously more convenient. But some guys do twice a week, some do 3 times a week. Again, it's very personalized. And then we'll do a 6-week follow-up, and we'll compare numbers, right? How do you feel? Here are your numbers. Everything is on the table. It's not just the numbers. It doesn't matter as much as how do you feel. But it does show that, okay, your body's reacting properly. It's accepting it. And then we'll do 3 months, 6 months, and every guy's different. If we're making changes to the program, there's more labs done. Every time there's a change to the program, we're doing labs again. If a guy hits his cruising altitude and he's good to go, every few months is fine. And again, they're the ones that we're feeding off of, Give us your feedback. How do you feel? And if they come in for testosterone and then a certain peptide or something becomes of interest, we'll talk about that. Or some guys come in and like, I don't have an interest in testosterone. I want this kind of peptide because I'm looking to have this result. And there's peptides that cover everything on the planet as far as biologically, whether it's sleep, recovery, mood, sexual desire, like you name it, there's a peptide for it. So some guys are coming in and that's becoming more and more of a common request. But I always tell them but your foundation needs to be secure before you can build up from that. And they get that. And some of the guys they're already healthy. They're already doing all the right things. Now they want to level up, they want to elevate from where they are.
We've covered a lot. As we wrap this up, is there anything that we've missed that you feel is really important that you want to make sure somebody understands, who might, especially that person who might be on the fence right now about getting into this?
I would say if you feel something's off, go with your gut. Almost every guy that starts it tells me, I wish I started sooner. Number one, there's no harm, no foul, just to get your numbers checked out, right? There's no contracts, there's no commitments. This is not something that you're signing on the dotted line. You can try it for a few months and stop. Now, ideally you wouldn't. Ideally, you realize that when you stop, you go back down here again. Your body's not producing. This doesn't kickstart production. I think that's something to kind of clear up. So it's not kickstarting a machine to produce more of something. The body is no longer producing. So it's genetic and it's super normal and it's more common than not. It's not the uncommon thing. So guys that feel like something's wrong with me, no, you're right where you're supposed to be. We live hard lives. Our bodies have felt that, whether it's genetic, whether it's lifestyle, whether it's a combination of both. All of us get to a point, we'll say the vast majority get to a point where we don't feel the same as we used to feel. All we're saying is you don't have to accept that anymore. You can simply make that the starting point of, hey, I don't want to feel this way anymore. I want to get checked out. Talk to somebody who actually knows what they're talking about and who has your best interest in mind and is going to do something personalized for you, not cookie cutter. And then once you start, very few guys will stop, because why would you stop something that allows you to thrive in so many aspects of your life? And also just, we love our first responders. We love our vets. And we love our dads and our hard workers. We love them all, right? But we just found so many guys. There's one guinea pig from this department or that firehouse or whatever that came in and realized we are just by default kind of first responder centric. We've just learned from all the patients and learned from my staff like Joe, who's the Green Beret medic, or the other staff who comes from that line of work, or their husbands are in that line of work. It's just who we are. So we understand you, not where you've been, but we understand kind of the types of things you might be going through. And a lot of times I think they don't feel like they're walking into a place that understands them. So yeah, we'd love to have people come in and check us out. Obviously, I try to post educational things on our Instagram, Gameday Murrieta, and post things I think are relevant, whether it's lifestyle, health, not just about what we do, but just general health and wellness stuff that I find important, and just things that I do for the community, just supporting your podcast or sharing information about the city. So it's kind of like a little home base where you can get a bunch of little pieces of information if you want to check it out from time to time. But I really enjoyed coming out here. I appreciate you extending your circle to people that did not serve. I'm indebted to those people who did, but right now I'm helping serve them the best I can. And yeah, anything else you have questions from me? Like
I said, I think there's that point of you want to get a lot of information. And I'm sure somebody listening right now is wishing that I had asked, man, why didn't you ask that question? And I'm sorry. I thought I asked all the questions that at least were rattling around in my head. So I would say that anybody who has any more questions, if you're concerned, if you're interested, please take that first step. Use the term guinea pig, but I would imagine for a lot of organizations, get the first person in the door and they go back and all of a sudden it's almost like the floodgates open.
Yeah.
So
true.
If you're that person who's got questions, got reservations, whatever it is, act on it. At least, like you said, come through the door and just ask the questions that you have.
Mm-hmm. For sure. At least you'll leave there with knowing that you took that first step. It's the hardest step. Some of these guys spend years thinking about stuff. The hardest step is just coming through the doors or making the phone call and talking to me or my staff, and just like at least step one. Like all journeys, it's that first step's the hardest, right? But yeah, we have their back and we have the community's back, and we appreciate the support from the community so far. We've only been open for about 15 months, but it feels like we've been open for a long time. So, but thanks again.
I appreciate you sharing your story. Appreciate you sharing your time. I wish you all the best going forward.
All right, Paul, thanks.
As always, thank you for listening or watching the episode. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to reach out on social media or send me an email. The links are all in the show notes. I'd love to hear from you. Also, if you're not already, please follow the podcast on whatever platform you get your podcasts. You can also subscribe on YouTube. And if you would, please leave me a rating. Ratings do two things. You can tell me what I need to fix or improve, and the more ratings also gets the podcast recommended to more people. Another ask, please share the podcast with anyone you think could benefit from and enjoy it. And last, don't forget, sign up for the newsletter.